Now, breaking news, Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh and the woman who is accusing him of physical and sexual assault will both testify at a public hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee next Monday. We'll get some insight on how this could play out. Joining me now, two people who know a lot about the nation's top court, CNN chief legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin, who's written best-selling books about the court, and CNN Supreme Court reporter Ariane DeVoe. How much trouble do you think, Jeff, the Kavanaugh nomination could be in?
I think he's in a lot of trouble, but it doesn't mean he's not going to get confirmed. But, you know, a tremendous amount will ride on how the senators perceive him, how the senators perceive Ms. Ford, and how the public perceives them.
But doesn't
both.
it boil down to he said, she said?
Not necessarily. See, that's one of the things that I find so frustrating about situations like this. Ultimately, a lot of trials, at least, they don't come down to, if someone looks credible. They come down to the issue of corroboration. Are there other witnesses who back up their story? Are there documents? Now, here we're dealing with a situation pre-cell phones, pre-internet, text messages. So you're not going to have that kind of evidence. But, there was a lot of courtroom evidence before those things were invented. And we have a week, which is not a little time, but it's not a lot of time, but it can be done. And, there were four men at that party and two women. Who were they? Who was the host of the party? Why was she wearing a bathing suit? Was there a pool at the house? Do other people remember things? I mean, this is how trials are resolved. And this, at this point, is a lot closer to a trial than it is to a conventional hearing.
Ariane, what's the latest you know about how Judge Kavanaugh is dealing with this, what his reaction was, and what his plan is for next week? Because he seemed to have volunteered to, try to testify as soon as possible.
Right. Well, I talked to somebody who knows him, who's known him for a long time, and they said he was flabbergasted by these allegations. And then when she did come forward, he vaguely did recall the name. She went by Chrissy in those days. But again, this was 30 years ago. He was in high school, right? And so he still vehemently denies it. He came out with a statement this morning. He said, because this never happened, I had no idea who was making this accusation until she identified herself. And what's interesting, Anderson, is that this morning there was some media reports that there would be some scorched earth policy to come up against her, about her, and that did not happen. We've seen the focus really on Kavanaugh, his past as a judge, the fact that he did 5 background checks, his church, the community, even the president in his comments today, he said he never even had a little blemish on his record. And now we've got this hearing, right? And keep in mind, Kavanaugh is familiar with this process. Not only has he been there before as a circuit court judge, he's been there for the Supreme Court. And when he worked in the White House, he worked on nominations. So you can expect him to be precise and definitive. But then you can expect her. She may not have corroboration at the time, but she's going to have this visceral, compelling story. And that's what we're going to see.
But again, think about the facts. Apparently, Brett Kavanaugh today said to Orrin Hatch, I wasn't at that party. Ms. Ford says, I can't remember which party it was. Well, what's going on here? I mean, what party was it? And how does he know he wasn't at a party? She's not even sure which one it was. I mean, this is why you need to have an investigation. This is why the Democrats are trying to get the FBI involved and have them, explore these circumstances, whereas the Republicans are saying, no, the congressional committee staff can handle the whole thing.
Seems hard, though, to imagine that, even if the FBI that can figure out where there was a high school party 30 years ago.
It can be done. And maybe it will fail. But the one thing is for sure is that if you don't try, you won't succeed.
But Ariane, that's only going to happen if the Republicans agree to it.
Right. So Senator Dianne Feinstein, she said tonight, well, I don't know about this hearing. I wasn't told about it beforehand because she wants something else. She wants the FBI to come in and investigate. But keep in mind, the FBI and even the Department of Justice said tonight, look, they were brought in. Their role was to provide information. Now, if the White House wants to ask them to do more, they could. But so far, the White House doesn't. So it's an interesting process story that's going to play out. And Senator Dianne Feinstein is going to say, maybe we shouldn't have hearings. If the FBI is going to be investigating, should we be doing these calls, et cetera? So you're really going to continue, as we've seen all along from the beginning with Brett Kavanaugh, have this fight about process.
And by the way, one thing we haven't mentioned yet is the fact that every journalist in America, or certainly a lot of them, and some very talented journalists, are going to be applying themselves. And I happen to have a lot of confidence in our colleagues. And I think we will learn a lot from journalism about the surrounding circumstances over this week. And, you know, that too will play into all of this.